about these same issues. Now let's bring in a Republican, why don't we? Congresswoman Elise Stefanik of New York. She is the youngest woman ever elected to Congress at the age of 30, and not just that. She graduated huge with honors from Harvard. Ran a campaign that got her a 20-point win upstate. And this is but your second appearance on the Fox News Channel, and we welcome you.
And I'm happy to be here.
Dick Durbin of Illinois, Democratic senator, just said, look, how about we get community college? One of the problems in your area of New York State, at least within a couple of counties you said a few minutes ago, is unemployment among kids and need for training and resources. Help me understand what's wrong with this idea of college for free for some.
So I'm a big supporter of community colleges. We have very high quality community colleges in the northern part of New York State. My problem with the president's proposal is that he hasn't talked about how we're paying for this program. So the cost of this program will be upwards of $60 billion, a high percentage of which will rest on the states, which are struggling under debt, just the way the federal government is. This is a president, we have over $18 trillion of debt today, and when I talk about bringing a new generation of leadership to Congress, we have to address our long-term budget issues. So I think there's ways we can focus on college affordability, making sure that it's high quality and accessible for young people, and community colleges are an important part of that process, but we need to make sure that we are addressing the cost and not just more and more spending.
The uniqueness of your situation has given you a bit of a platform, as we were discussing in the commercial break before this. You're the first member of your family ever to graduate from college, and of course you have to go off and do it from Harvard.
Yes.
And now the youngest woman in Congress ever. They're listening to you. What have you done so far? You mentioned you co-sponsored some legislation.
Absolutely. So I've only been here 2 weeks. This is officially my second week. I was sworn in 2 Tuesdays ago, and I've already co-sponsored legislation that has passed, that will hopefully be brought up in the House, the medical device tax repeal. I voted in support of the Keystone Pipeline, which has significant bipartisan support, and that's what's disappointing to me, is hearing the president issue a veto on the Keystone Pipeline, which is a job creator. It has support from Republicans and Democrats, and it helps create jobs.
Of course, he would argue that it's not really a job creator, that it'll create a few jobs, that they won't be long-term jobs, and that we're taking this oil from Canada and out the Gulf of Mexico to somewhere else. Bill Nelson was talking just a little while ago about why can't some of this oil be used in the United States, and he was suggesting we might be able to get closer to this if they could work that part of it out, but that just got tabled in the Senate.
Well, you know, I think if you look at the overwhelming vote in support of the Keystone Pipeline in the House, it is a job creator. The district I represent is borders with Canada, so we need to continue to promote the relationship the U.S. and Canada have together. We need to pursue energy independence in this country, so I'm an ardent supporter of the Keystone Pipeline.
How do you like gridlock? Because you were right up in the middle of it for the last 2 weeks. Do you see any place for compromise, real compromise?
You know, this is part of the reason why I ran for Congress, is as I traveled on the campaign trail, what I heard from Republicans and Democrats and independents alike is that they're frustrated with the gridlock in Washington. So I prioritized reaching out across the aisle, but part of that is ensuring that the President and Congress work together. So as we have these bipartisan bills that pass, I hope the President reaches out and works with Congress, and unfortunately that's not what we're hearing that we'll likely hear tonight in the State of the Union.
Now that John Boehner has larger numbers, do you think it's possible that the more moderate elements of the Republican Party might get more of a voice, and the more extreme elements of the Republican Party might have less of a voice, which might be able to lead us towards some sort of compromise?
I like to consider myself a big tent new generation Republican, and I think there are initiatives.
So that would be the opposite of Tea Party.
No, it would be big tent. I think that some of the fiscal responsibility that Tea Party groups talk about is important, but I also think that in order to reach out to new generations, we have to talk about things differently. Overwhelmingly, the top issues in my district are job creation. How do we reduce regulations on small businesses? How do we clear out the tax code and pursue fundamental tax reform so that we're both addressing the corporate tax rate but also individual taxes to make sure that it's common sense? I believe that there's common ground not only among the Republicans but among both parties. And that's part of the reason that I ran for Congress, is to present those solutions.
Specifically in the Republican House, if you have to kowtow to the far right, you have a harder time getting legislation that will work with a left-of-center president. Now that the majority is larger and Speaker Boehner will have more votes in Congress, will some of the Tea Party voices be able to be ignored with the idea of moving legislation forward, or are we not there yet?
I think no. ignored in Congress, and I think that winning back the Senate is a huge step in the right direction for Republicans, because not only will we see legislation pass out of the House, but I'm optimistic that we'll see common sense legislation pass out of the Senate, and I hope the president is willing to work with Congress. The public spoke overwhelmingly in the 2014 elections, but in terms of my position, I came to Washington. I'm willing to work with anyone who puts forth solutions, whether they're Democrat, Republican, or independent, and I hope to be able to work with Senate to do that.
You know what I've learned?
What?
The White House has good cooks.
This is what I hear. I was listening to the menu.
Every year since you were like 17, I've been talking about the menus over there at the White House. That we've gotten to the entree portion. There are people at home waiting, so I don't think you would mind.
No, I want to hear.
The food's delicious. It was aged ribeye, which they sliced kind of thin. It was about medium to medium rare, along with that caramelized plantain. So you had the banana-like plantains, and then the ones that are stripped like chips. I thought maybe it was a nod to the new Cuba policy. But it was delicious if you like caramelized plantains, which I really do. And that came with chorizo and black bean chimichurri. And it all just came together so nicely. There's a little bit of fat on the end. Cut that part off. Really enjoyed it. It was quite a lunch.
Well, you're lucky, Shep. I had a quick lunch on the go today.
Yeah, that's normally, as Gretchen has mentioned so many times, we usually meet at the microwave on the 17th floor and jockey for position over how to warm things up. Today, though, was not that. The last part of it, have you ever heard of Pavlov for dessert? I knew about the dog. You're
Me too. I only know Pavlov the dog. I don't know.
Me too. So I Googled it. So as we talk about the grapefruit Pavlov, that'll be the dessert portion, and we'll save that for a little bit later in the program.
Okay, good. I'll Google it too.
Welcome to Washington.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
It's warmer here than upstate.
It is warmer here. We had a lot of snow in our district over the past 2 weeks.
That won't change.
I know.
Nice to meet you.
You
truly.
too, Shep.
Thanks. Officials say they've carried out new counter